This is High School Packets Part 2, and I'm going to dedicate this video to Braulio Vergara, Shipwrecks, and Gabriel Ross, and to all of my students, because I feel I have failed you bad. And the reason is because I probably could have prevented that tirade that happened between Jeff Bliss and that teacher by simply posting up a video just like this one here, telling you the following information, which could have immediately stopped all of this. And hopefully, by presenting all this information now, it'll prevent these kind of things from happening ever again. Now, the first thing I'm going to tell you is what an honor challenge is. This is the kind of thing that should be taught to kids on the very first day of school. Anything about past the 4th grade, they should know this stuff. What is an honor challenge? This is when two intellectuals come together. They both have very good credentials, equalized credentials, okay? And they debate a certain topic, and one debater manages to make a statement that the other debater cannot refute. And because of that, this other debater ends up being humiliated and has to shut his mouth until he can come up with enough evidence to actually refute the first debater's arguments. That's an honor challenge. How does this work with Jeff Bliss? Jeff Bliss basically was trying to tell his teacher how she should teach. Basically saying, I'm smarter than you, I'm better than you, and I'm now going to instruct you how to teach. That's an honor challenge. That should never happen. Not in a classroom. Okay? Now then, the teacher failed in this case because, not because she didn't humiliate him, which she probably should have done, but she could have prevented all that in the first place by telling Jeff Bliss and his peers about honor challenges and about appropriate forums. She never taught that either. What's an appropriate forum? Well, you have to look up Roman forums, and if you ask me to, I'll look them up. I'll put links down here and show you what an appropriate Roman forum would be. In this case, Jeff Bliss should have gone to the school board, which would have been an appropriate forum, instead of having a tirade in a classroom. That's an appropriate forum. Don't believe me? Look up Roman forums and you'll find out for yourself. Now then, the third thing that should have been taught right off the bat is who created packets, why they were created, so on and so forth. Now, I'm going to answer those questions tonight. The first thing I'm going to tell you is who created them and when. First, who created them? Patricia S. Ward is one of them, and E. Craig Williams. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to leave a link down here below that will tell you how these packets got created in the first place. They created these back in 1976, so they've been around for quite a while, although not widely used until today. And what does all this mean? Okay. What that means is that things back in 1976 were a little different than what they are today. Back then, you had your phonograph, you had your cassette tape, your 8-track tape player, you had film strips and movie projectors. That's what you had. And if you really needed a reference material, you looked it up in the library with a card catalog. Not the same thing as today, huh? Okay. So, why did they design these packets? Well, they designed these things to be a tool for the teacher to use to educate her students, which is exactly how they are not being used today. Oops. They were actually designed to be a blueprint of instruction. That's what the article says. The article down here, it says they were designed to be a blueprint of instruction. And they're supposed to tell people what the student is supposed to learn. Doesn't the teacher determine that? I think teachers should. It's supposed to show this kid learning resources. Isn't that what the teacher's there to do, is to show you learning resources? I would show the kid learning resources. Here's another problem with those learning resources. Back then, you wrote this down in a packet, and the kid received it, he can look it up all year round because most likely it would still exist at the end of the year just like it did at the beginning. Here's the problem. The internet came in. Cable television came in. VCRs came in. CDs and DVDs, they all came in. Now, everything except the internet was pretty consistent, but when you're talking about the internet, you put a link in a packet at the beginning of the year, it may not even be there at the end of the year, or it might be upgraded. Either way, that packet can become pretty obsolete pretty quickly. Here you give the packet at the beginning of the year and it becomes obsolete at the end of the year. Now what's the kid supposed to do? And what happens if this kid can't read? How is he supposed to use the packet if he can't read? There's another problem. Is some packet going to teach this kid how to read, write, or spell? How do you teach a kid how to spell? You recite a word and he spells it. That's how you teach a kid how to spell. That's how it works. You tell him a couple of times how to spell it, and then you recite the word and he spells it. That's the way it works. No packet's going to teach that. Not unless it has an audio feature. Okay? And the packet determines what the kid actually learned? No, the teacher determines what the kid actually learns. That's the way it works. If you don't believe me, talk to Sylvan, talk to Huffington Learning Center. They'll tell you. Talk to me and I'll tell you. Teacher teaches kids. That's how it works. Okay? And then they give these kids pre-tests. Well, the kid can't read your test. He can't take it if he can't read it. How are you going to fix that? With another packet? Please. There are some things that a packet simply cannot fix. And reading is one of them. And spelling is another. And I wouldn't let some packet teach me how to count change. That's a teacher's job. And these packets are supposed to avoid chaos. I think they create more chaos than they avoid. Because the teachers are no longer using them as a tool to educate. They're using them as a crutch. And that's wrong. See? And teachers talk too much. Where do they get this? Teachers talk too much? No. Teachers need to talk more, not less. That's why we have YouTube videos like this. Okay? And what's the problem with students going through textbooks together if you have a structured approach? The problem isn't the students, the problem is the textbooks. Those modern textbooks are so full of errors, egregious errors, you really can't use them in the classroom anymore. Don't believe me? Go look it up for yourself. You'll find out how many errors these textbooks have these days. Your problem is you don't know how to write a proper textbook. Why don't you use Euclid's Elements as a textbook? Okay? You want to teach people accounting? Teach them out of the FASB. Financial Accounting Standards Board. You teach this. That's how you teach people accounting. You want to teach people history? Why don't you grab all those wonderful papers that were written by people like George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. Let them read those biographies. That'll teach them something. Just make sure they can read first. And let me tell you something. Why aren't people teaching kids the memory book by Harry Lorraine? That's how you remember stuff. This will teach you more than what those modern textbooks will ever teach you. I personally guarantee it. And what's the problem with teaching kids how to speed read? I think every kid should learn how to speed read after he gets out of the 4th grade. It's ridiculous that they don't. You can disagree with me all you want, but I'm telling you, they should learn how to speed read. And what's wrong with a group presentation? When you have an employer, he gives a group presentation. You better get used to them now because you're going to have group presentations at your employment. That's the way it works. And kids taking more responsibility for their learning? No, teacher takes responsibility. There is no such thing as a bad student. There is such a thing as a bad teacher. And what makes a teacher bad? By not getting the kid to realize that what they're trying to teach them is information that will keep them alive, safe, and well. That's the difference. So, if you want to blame people for your packets, go ahead and blame Patricia S. Ward and E. Craig Williams. Read their article. Go ahead and make a presentation out of that. Love to see some of you try. Matter of fact, I would hope that you guys would spread that article all over the world. I want people to read this, to know what these packets are all about. Don't let me down. Okay. Well, I think I've said more than enough in this particular video. Hopefully, with you guys knowing this additional information, tirades like what Jeff Bliss did won't happen in the future. This video needs to be spread all over the world to keep these tirades from happening in the first place. Why don't you take this video to your school board meetings and read that article and come up with further objections to packets based on what that article says. Then maybe we can get the packets out of the classroom and decent teachers in there. That's how you argue a point. Have we learned anything yet? I hope so. Anyway, I have a feeling I'll be making more videos like this. I don't want to, but I have a feeling we will. Let's see if I can teach you guys some things that really are useful to you. When I made that video about proofreading, I feel that that will be more useful to you than those modern day textbooks. I will continue to teach you Euclid's Elements. I will continue to teach you other stuff. I'm all out of breath, and I feel I'm all out of time too. So, I will tell you more in a future video. Stay tuned.